How can you tell a communist? Someone who reads Marx and Lenin. How can you tell an anti-communist? It's someone who understands Marx and Lenin. A great quote from one of our greatest presidents, Ronald Reagan. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to raise conservative kids. I feel kind of funny, humbled to say this, but I have a lot of friends that are always telling me they admire how all my kids are conservative and how we have such a close-knit family. A while back, I was going through some financial struggles, and my friend said, I know you're struggling right now, but you're the richest guy I know. He said, I've never seen a family so close and children love their dad as much as your kids love you. And he said, you're richer than all of us. And this guy was pretty well off. So I was blessed and I was humbled, especially knowing that I've fallen short. And I'll be the first to admit I've fallen short in so many areas as a father and as a husband and as a Christian man. But by the grace of God, I have 5 grown children, aged 23 to 35. They all have children of their own, 4 boys, 1 girl. And we're a very close family, and they're all conservative. Just for the sake of a lot of my international listeners, I know different labels mean different things in different places. I'm not talking about Catholic conservative. As far as I'm concerned, and this might be a simplistic view, there's 2 types of Catholics, conservatives and heretics. I mean, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but either you follow the Catholic Church and you believe what the Catholic Church teaches, and that would be, to me, a conservative, or you don't and you're a heretic. So if you're a liberal who, pro-choice Catholic, or pro-gay marriage Catholic, that's heretical. You could call yourself a liberal, but again, it's either you're an Orthodox Catholic or heretical Catholic, conservative, liberal, I don't know. But as far as political, as Catholics, I believe we should be politically conservative as well. We live in a free society where it's our responsibility and our duty to participate. So as far as conservative, would be social conservative, would be pro-life, pro-traditional family, fiscal conservative, or as Robert P. George, my last guest, calls it, an economic conservative, would be for low taxes, greater opportunity in the job market, less job regulations. So how do I end up with 5 conservative kids? Well, Ronald Reagan also had another great quote. He said, the only places socialism ever works is heaven, where they don't need it, and hell, where it already is. So I tell my kids about places where communism and socialism has taken over and how they destroyed it. Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, China, North Korea. I mean, all over the world, wherever socialism and communism went, it destroyed the country. Okay? I mean, it's not that hard to look. It's not that hard to see. America is an exceptional nation because we're a nation by the people, run by the people. Where an average blue-collar guy or an Ivy League professor could go on a YouTube channel and have a conversation, where a single mom could raise a child named Bill Clinton from Arkansas, and he could become president of the United States. Even though I disagree with him politically, I admire the greatness of what he achieved. Same thing with Barack Obama. Another man came from humble beginnings, became president of the United States. America is a land of opportunity. That's why we have millions and millions of people from all different races, black, brown, Asian, trying to get in, because they know America is the freest country in the world. They know America is the greatest opportunity for them to succeed. But God's given us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we need to listen to our children twice as much as we talk to them. Hear what they're saying, kind of get cute, get ideas of what they're thinking. Dad, as Christians, shouldn't we be doing more to help the poor? Well, we're trying to. I said, imagine if your friend was stuck in a really bad school in the inner city, and he really was a smart kid, but the school was crazy and he just couldn't learn, and he was just being held down. Imagine if you could give him a voucher to let him go to the rich white school up the road, or to like the best Catholic school or the best Baptist school or whatever school he wants to go to, a Jewish school, a mosque. If you gave that family that freedom, how much better off would that kid be? That's a conservative Republican principle called school choice. But the Democrats fight that tooth and nail, because the Democrat principle, liberalism, socialism, communism, it comes in all different forms, but it basically comes down to one thing: statism. The state controls you. The state knows better. Democrats think the state knows better than the family. So the state says, no, you got to go to a public school that we tell you to go to. We're going to control this. And you see it's a failure. Well, what about helping poor black families that are suffering, because they don't have enough money for food? Well, the proof is in the pudding. In the 1950s, the black family was stronger than the white family. Black divorce rate was almost unheard of. They had like a 5% divorce rate, where white Americans had like a 25% divorce rate. Out of wedlock births were much higher in the white family than the black family. Black families went to church every Sunday together at a much higher rate than white families. And then the Democrats, and as my friend Robert P. George, Princeton professor we had on at my last interview, said, he thinks it was well-intentioned, the Democrats' plan called the Great Society. I think I disagree. I think the Democrat Party at that point voted against civil rights. They were the party of Jim Crow. They literally were the party that instituted the Jim Crow laws, and they were the party that started the KKK. So I don't think their intentions were well. I think the results they got were the intentions they wanted. So the Great Society spent, at this point, probably trillions of dollars to combat poverty. Number one, poverty hasn't changed. The rate of poverty hasn't changed. But number two, it's destroyed the black family, because no longer did you need a black father in the family going out to work, showing the children the value of hard work, staying together. It was more beneficial for the father to leave and the government to give them a welfare check. So they destroyed the black family, to the point now 75% of blacks are born out of wedlock, African Americans. This was a direct result of liberalism by the Democrat Party. This was a total status project. Now, on the other hand, when President Trump was president, he opened up opportunity zones. So in poor black areas, he said, businesses, if you open up here, we won't tax you. We'll take away all kinds of regulations. We'll even help you out, whatever you need. They were called opportunity zones. And as a direct result, black unemployment was the lowest it's ever been in the history of America. That's why Donald Trump got more black votes than any other Republican, despite the 24/7 barrage of the media calling him a racist, because the proof was in the pudding. Blue collar guys like me seen it. We had, and again, the statists, the liberals, they want to have a ton of regulations. And again, like Professor Robert P. George said, not to help the economy, but they're in bed with big business. Big business donates a ton of money. So the more regulations, big business doesn't mind if, they got to spend millions of dollars on regulations. But the little guy starting out his little business, out of his garage, he can't compete. He can't come up with millions of dollars worth of regulation. So again, Donald Trump, very conservative economic principle. He cut regulations more than any president ever. And he unleashed the fiercest, the best economy ever. We had the best economy in 50 years. I'm telling you, blue collar guys like me were offered jobs. Every store I went in, people were trying to get me to work for them. The economy was booming. All these jobs to compete kept raising our salaries. And again, I'm going to keep quoting this guy because I love him. Robert P. George said, the best jobs program is a market economy. And so the market, Donald Trump was allowing the market. So I explain these principles to my kids, and I give them both sides, and I listen, and I teach them how to think critically, you know, and and that's going back to the first principle. Those who read Lenin and Marx might be communists, but those who actually understand what Lenin and Marx have done and what they want to do, they're going to be anti-communists, So I give them both sides. But through all this, you got to have a relationship with your children. You need to put your children, your wife first, before your golf handicap, before your ministry, before anything. Your children, your wife got to come first. And the children will see this. The children will notice. Another thing, I never handed, maybe if I had money, I would have. But all my kids bought their first car. All my kids bought all their cars. They all worked throughout high school. My oldest kid did flooring, and he got a good trade. He's in sales now, but if he ever needs, to make extra money, he can put in a wood floor like in a day and make a good buck. And he worked with men, and he's seen the difference of a lot of men that call themselves Christians. So you gotta be real with your kids. Don't pretend to be something you're not, and you gotta be real in life. Will Rogers had a famous quote: "We shall live as such that you wouldn't be embarrassed to give your family parrot to the town gossip." Great quote, Will Rogers. So be real in front of your kids. When you make a mistake, tell them, that was wrong, I shouldn't have done that. My son was amazed when he worked with these men that call themselves Christians, how they conducted themselves, and he told me, wow, we had to talk about that once. And then, I have daughter-in-laws. My daughter-in-laws are conservatives too. My one daughter-in-law told me she grew up in a more liberal home, and she was always, taught that, conservative men were like these ogres, really mean, closed-minded men. And she said, after dating my son, she's like, Rob's a conservative. He's the nicest guy I know. And she started listening to Ben Shapiro, Milo. Like, she loves all those guys. And I had another daughter-in-law, and this is another issue. As Christians, we need to stay committed to our families. She told me this past, kind of got choked up, and I'm gonna try not to get choked up again, but she told me this last Father's Day that I was the first man that actually showed her what a father figure should be like. She never had a father figure in her life, and none of her friends had father figures in their life. She grew up with a single mom, and all her friends had single moms. And she cried, and I got a little choked up. But this is the grace of God, guys. We all fall short. I could give you a 2-hour video of everything I did wrong and tell you not to do it. I'm just trying to give you some pointers. Listen to your children. Love your kids more than you love yourself. Love your wife more than you love yourself. And love, I'm not saying emotional feeling, love like Jesus loved us. He gave his life for us. Give your lives for your children. This is an investment that will pay dividends eternally. Sacrifice that extra dollar you got to make if you're going to miss church with your kids. Sacrifice that extra dollar you're going to make to miss your kids' soccer game. Love your children like Christ loved us. Love your wife like Christ loved us. I'm telling you. And don't be afraid if your kids disagree. Accept it and show them that you're not closed-minded. Well, we all have our points of view. Don't get angry. Just keep trying to win them over. Keep giving them the better argument, because our argument is better. We fight for what we believe is true. Our arguments are better. Everywhere liberalism goes, it destroys it. Look what it did to sports. Look what it's doing to schools. Everywhere, entertainment. Wherever liberals go, they destroy it. And when they take over government, you get Cuba, you get Venezuela, you get North Korea, And again, point this out. The more power the government gets, the worse it is for us. Another great quote from Ronald Reagan: government isn't the solution, government is the problem. And another great thing about America is, we're a nation by the people. It's run by the people. When George Washington was given powers of a king because Congress was under attack, so they had to literally give him powers of the king, he voluntarily gave it back. That's never been done before in history, where you give someone the power of a king and they give it back voluntarily. But he did that twice. He was given the power. And then after the war, he was asked to be king. He could have been king. And he said, no, this is a nation by the people. That's unheard of. That's what makes America exceptional. And even Donald Trump, believe it or not, all the Democrats wanted to give him the power of the king. Remember, it was the Democrats that were mad that he wasn't mandating masks. He wasn't mandating all kinds of stuff. Remember, he wasn't mandating lockdowns. He said, no, I'm going to give that power and authority to the governors. And thankfully, I live in a conservative state, and my governor gave it to the local officials, who then, in turn, gave it to the families and said, you decide what's best for your family. And like Robert P. George in my last interview said, that's a Catholic teaching called subsidiarity. Subsidiarity. I always have problems with that word. But it's a Catholic teaching. It's a conservative principle that if a problem can be solved at the family level, solve it at the family level. If it's too big for the family, solve it at the town level. If too big for the town, the city, the state, and so forth. But the statists, the liberals, always want to solve everything at the federal level. They want the federal government to control everything. So there's a lot more I could say, but I'm on my coffee break here at work, and so I got to get back to work. But the bottom line is, talk to your kids. I have a lot of friends that are conservative that never talk politics with their kids, and then they wonder why they go off and they go to college. And 90% of college teachers are Marxists today. I mean, literally Marxists. And they're brainwashing our kids, they're only giving them one side. And they're saying they won't even let them question them. They're telling them the other side is racist, the other side is bigoted, the other side is evil. They won't even allow open debate in colleges. And then their kids come back liberals, and the parents wonder why. And I'm like, well, did you ever tell your kids what conservatism is? So if you don't know, get educated. Learn about conservatism, learn about conservative principles, and talk to your kids. Always talk to your kids. Keep a good relationship. And even if you disagree, just like if you disagree, a great example again, Robert P. George and his best friend Cornel West. They disagree, but they don't get angry at each other. They don't fight. They just disagree. And that's the American way. Freedom of thought, freedom of speech. So hopefully this was helpful. There's a lot more I want to say, but I'm looking at the time as I'm talking, and I really got to go. God bless. Stay Catholic. And if you're buying or selling real estate, go to realestateforlife.org.